Good news, guys. You don't need the MPC 60, the MPC 2000, or any of these retro drum machines to get started with the retro sounds. Let's hop straight into FL Studio. I'll show you guys a couple workflow tips. So firstly, back in the day, a lot of them had loops and one-shots from different companies. So let's get started with this loop first. And let's just time stretch this out. Let's just manually go in FL. All we need to do is just grab that first loop here. So let's, all right, we need to pull this back. Okay, so we need to grab the slice tool. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and slice. Okay, so some of these are not perfectly looped. That's one thing about the older loops here. Click in the top left, go to make unique as a sample, double click, go to mode, stretch mode. And now we can just lock it to the grid, or you could right click like Av McCree showed and select the amount of bars. Let's right click, make this 1 bar. And let's just slow the BPM to like 82, 84, 90, 91. That's the boom bap tempo. So we're going to start with a loop, which is a different approach than most people do nowadays for their drums, especially percussive loops. And we're going to go into the channel rack here, hit Control L, send this to the mixer. Let's just turn this down a little bit. So now the next part, you guys could optionally chop up a drum break. You could rearrange a drum break, or you could use one shots. For this example, we're just going to use one shots to keep this really basic. Let's just use something like the Alchemist drums or something. And we just need to find a kick and snare that match this specific sample. This is the part that people kind of don't take time on. You need to make sure your drums match the timbre of the sample. Like this snare does not go with this sample, like that clap does. This kick does, more of a Timbaland kick. We could use that kick. Okay, so we want to keep it bare bones because truncated stuff is more rhythmic. So the more sustained elements we have, the more it takes away from the rhythm. Okay, let's do a couple things here. Let's go to the envelope. To get that 90s feel, we're going to turn on what's called the hold parameter. And then we're also going to take off the start time here, or you could use the trim function to get rid of any gaps. So that alone, just playing a truncated sample. Let's record this in to the metronome. Sorry about the piano. So some claps went psh, other claps went psh. Okay, so that small little difference. Also too, you can hit Alt Q. I showed you guys in a different video where to find the MPC. Just go to our Discord, discord.gg/busyworksbeats. Look where it says free downloads. Look in the drum kit section. You'll find these quantize options for the FL Studio quantizer. You can load these up with the folder here, and you can load up MPC quantize settings. So we're going to quantize to this. We're going to quantize this drum to 50% of the MPC swing. So it has more of an MPC swing. And this is going to have that old school vibe. Let's add our kick. We can do the same thing with the kick. Trim out the excess here. Add a hold parameter. Now the key here is you want to record velocity sensitivity. If you don't have a MIDI controller, consider one, because this is part of the 90s, is the dynamic and the velocity. All right, so let's see if we need to quantize that kick. Now, usually I don't use the metronome, especially if we have a hi-hat established in the rhythm. Let's hit Alt Q. This is the MPC quantize. It does have a different swing to it. Let's pull back the sensitivity. And the start time settings. I kind of liked it. Let's just turn it all the way on. So that is all MPC timing right now. Another key is to go to in between BPMs, like 88.5 or 88.6 or some random kind of in between BPM, because drum machines weren't perfectly quantized to the hard numbers like 93, 91 back then. That's why it's hard to line up some samples, is because it's not quantized to exact tempos. So let's try that technique too. Let's add the snare in here. Same technique, truncation here, using the envelope, the whole parameter. We might use this kick, we might not, just depends. But a lot of them would go back over the pattern and do more kicks. I don't think we need more kicks, but let's. All right, so I was using that as a ghost kick to add to the swing. I don't think we need it right here though. That sounds pretty cool. That was actually pretty dope where I had that. Okay, so I'm doing kicks in like 2 runs, whereas most people would just do 1 kick and end it. Let's see if we can add the snare in here too. Now on that kick, I didn't truncate the kick. It's more of a ring out type of ghost kick. So notice truncation is a technique, not a mandatory step. We can even go further and add more claps, but for this video, we're going to keep it short. So all these little truncated movements create that swing that you guys are used to, that bounce, I'll say. Okay, so now we need a sample. Let's just, to be short about the sample, because I don't want to spend all day adding a sample here, because this could easily take all day to figure out all the little nuances of sampling. So I'm going to keep this really, really short, because this is more about the drums. Actually, before we even get to the sample, let's send this stuff to the mixer. Hit Control L in your channel rack after you highlight these sounds. Let's create a new bus called the drums, and we're going to run our drums through something called Genome. In Genome, which is a plugin you have to buy, you can load up NAM profiles, which are files you have to buy that load into, it's called a NAM profiler. And basically, you can emulate the sound of outboard gear. So some of my favorite patches are from Analog for Life, who worked with Analog X. This sounds more complicated, but once you get into it, you'll understand how easy it is. So just turn these off. We're going to load up what are called NAM profiles. Okay, similar to like impulse responses. 2 companies I like are Analog X and Past the Future Reverbs. We're going to go to Analog X, load up the Analog for Life kit called the 4K console, which I believe is the SSL. So basically you want to push the gain volume in, turn down the output to get the texture of like a real SSL console over your drums. And this is part of the sound. So you could do this with, see how the drums got really full? So you could do the same thing with the MPC from Past the Future. He is an MPC setting. So you guys could get the sound of the gear using NAM profiles. Now we have the heavy Dr. Dre sound. All right, now let's find a sample, and then we're going to add a low pass filter. Now we have so many samples. Again, we have these listed in our Discord, discord.gg/busyworksbeats. I've collected so many samples from so many different styles of people that I'm just going to click on random folders and see what we can find. But literally we have a lot of samples here, so there's no like right or wrong thing to do here. I'm just trying to find samples. All right, so I have some pre-chop samples just to save some time here. I don't want to like spend all day doing this. Let's add the FPC. We're going to treat it as if we're producing from the MPC. Click presets, go to empty. We're going to drag each of these chops. All right, so I loaded each sample onto a specific pad inside of the FPC. We need to program FPC to actually trigger from our MIDI controller. An easy way to do this is click on a note on your MIDI controller and then hit the pad. You want to keep scale velocity on, that way it's velocity sensitive. Go to MIDI note and go to last hit, and it will change that pad to be, that will be the pad's trigger. So next I'm going to do the same thing for each pad. You can do the learn mode, but I don't feel like wasting time teaching you guys all this stuff, because sometimes the learn mode messes up. So now we have, now the problem is they're overlapping, and I'll show you guys how to correct that issue. All right, so the last step we need to do here is truncate these sounds. So go to each sample pad. We're going to go to the envelope here, turn it on to activate it, turn the sustain up, and just pull the release tail back. And this will create more of a truncation. The same thing we did with the whole perimeter inside the sampler. We're doing the same thing here. Now to save time, we can click this drop down, go to copy state. You can click here, go to paste state, and that will save you guys a lot of time. All right, so now when I play a pad, you have to hold it in order for it to play all the way through. Let's hit Control L. And this is the final step outside of tuning the sample. If you notice a lot of like 90s beat makers who make modern boom bap, even they hit the pads like 1, 2, 3 for this, because they're chopping per like the half beat or the bar. Chopping by the beat or the bar, so that gives them music per bar. But we need to make sure this music matches up. So back then they did not have time stretch, so we need to use the tuning in order to stretch out the sample or to play longer. And I thought that was a universal tuning. I guess not. Yeah, this doesn't do anything to the sample. I'm not sure why. FL could be glitching too. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we need to do this per pad to figure out. So that's usually how they ended up getting these high frequency sounding things, is because they were trying to make it match a tempo. So let's do that per pad. So the only thing is we can't copy this value, so we have to look at the value in the top left. So it says 600 cents. I'm going to read the value here and make sure these are all 600 cents so that each chop does not sound out of key. Very tedious, but in the top left, it says 600 cents. So when you are trying to produce like the 90s, it will take more time. And the last thing here is we're going to run this through a filter with a resonance boost. Hit Control L to send your samples to the mixer. Let's open up Parametric EQ2, or you guys can load up. I think Kilohertz has a free sampler. The thing is, we want one with a drive feature. I don't know if this has a drive feature or not, so let's double check. I don't think that is. So we have something called the ladder filter. This may or may not have. Okay, so here's something called drive. So we're using a ladder filter because we can add tape saturation and we can also drive the signal and saturate it. So let's try this first. Turn up the resonance to hear more tone. How you get that final like 90s sound. I'm going to turn off my mic and record this. All right, so now we're going to use this filter, and I'm going to show you guys how to add more drive. If you need it, you don't have to, but let's add the saturation and add some drive. pull back the cutoff here. So basically it's enhancing the harmonics of the resonance. Let's try some bias here. So it's a little bit crunchy. It's at that fruity stereo enhancer for that Dr. Dre width. And now we can just, I like the value here, but we could always move that cutoff filter. So we still need a bass line technically, but I feel like that acts as a bass. So now your drum. So here's without all these effects. Here's before. I also just quantized the pad to the MPC swing, and it just has that sound of the MPC, in my opinion. That's swing. Let's add these effects back. We can pull it back so it's not stereoized. Now over top, you guys can add vocal chops. I don't have any vocal chops ready to go, but you could add the vocal chops over top of this as the final touch. So I found one that's like more of a crowd chant. Quantize these notes, hit Alt Q. Again, we're quantizing to the MPC. Again, to get those files, go to discord.gg/busyworksbeats. It's free to join. All right, so here's our finalized idea. So that's the magic of the 90s right there inside your DAW without any drum machines or any old outboard gear. But go check out the plugins and the process. Thank you guys for watching. To learn more about how to make beats like the pros, go to busyworksbeats.com/betterbeatmaker to learn to make beats like the pros. Peace out, guys. I'll leave all the links below. Peace.